The Day That Euleen Tried to Commit Suicide by Louis Crew. Like milk of magnesia, it coated the large iced tea glass, not the green kind Mother used for company, but the large clear ones Welch gave away with grape jelly. The DDT can itself, more than half empty, sat on Daddy's placemat. I rushed through the breakfast room towards the back stairs, holding the note Euleen had just pushed at me while I sat on the toilet in the middle bathroom reading about the Hardy Boys. "What is this?" I asked, startled. I was old enough for people not to open the bathroom door. At least they ought to knock. "Your mama is playing bridge at the country club, Billy. I wrote down the number," Euleen said. Euleen had just cracked the door when she reached in with the note, but still. By the time I called out, "What is this?" I should have known I'd wasted my breath, 'cause she already slammed the door that led to the backyard. I tried to wipe and read Euleen's note at the same time. Bertha, I made from before I was born, couldn't read and write, except her maiden name, Bertha Sistrain, which I taught her to write real pretty when I took longhand in the 2nd grade. But Euleen, who worked for us during the 3 years Bertha and Mother fell out, was educated. She even taught me, not just writing, but arithmetic too. Euleen said she wanted to teach me geometry, but Daddy, who headed the school board, told me to wait for that I needed algebra first, and not even that until I got to junior high school. I didn't even take time to wash my hands after I yanked up my knickers. The note Euleen handed me scared me half to death. "What a thing to say to a 9-year-old boy," Mrs. McWhirter told Mrs. Candler, talking loud enough to hear each other across our backyard between each of theirs a week later. Mrs. McWhirter and Mrs. Candler didn't have maids or get to play cards during daytime the way Mother did. They spent much of their time outside, sometimes hanging up clothes or gardening, but often just talking. They didn't know that I sat high up in my treehouse. The hickory dominated our backyard. Simple wire fences ran down either side more to support the roses than to keep anyone out. The garage filled one rear corner of the yard, Mother's rock garden the other. Between them stretched a long, high, green wooden fence that separated us from the smelly alley where dogs and cats and tramps sometimes foraged for scraps. On the phone, Mother had told me to follow Euleen and not to let her out of sight until the ambulance came. When I got down the back steps, Euleen had not fled into the alley. Since Mother was fat like Bertha, not lean like Euleen, I knew it would take her at least 5 minutes to walk the 2 blocks home, even after she had spent another 5 or 10 minutes calling the ambulance and the doctor. "Why did you do it, Euleen?" I called. By this time, Euleen stood on Mother's violets right at the top of the rock garden. I couldn't understand why she had gone to a closed corner. When I had promised Mother I would keep Euleen in sight, I thought I would have to follow her down the alley. Now, looking directly at her, I got scared. I'd never seen but 2 dead persons, my grandfather in his casket and old man Galloway in his, and I figured Euleen might stop wailing at any moment and turn into the shade of the waxed fruit that Mother liked, the way grandfather and old man Galloway had looked. I might just as well have talked to myself when I asked, "Why did you do it?" Euleen ignored me, except that she waved her hands to shoo me away when I started to walk toward her. She scared herself even more than me. Then she commenced a racket. "Lord, I'm dying! Lord, I'm dying!" I edged to the door of the back steps, afraid to go any nearer and afraid to leave her alone. Old man Galloway had built all the houses on this block so that each pair of back steps faced each other. As I came down ours, Mrs. McWhirter came down hers. She held a chicken from her coop on the porch. ready to wring its neck. Mother never asked even our maid to do that, but bought our chickens already plucked and wrapped up in a white paper delivered by Mr. Bird's grocery boy, an old colored man I liked named Fincher. The moment Mrs. McWhorter heard me, she let the chicken loose. "Oh, Miss Mac, Miss Mac, Miss Mac, Eulene's done swallowed DDT. Help her, help her." Mrs. McWhorter scared us even more when we saw her fear. She would not even speak to Euline, much less walk over to the rock garden where she howled louder now. "Oh, sweet Jesus, I'm coming to you, Jesus. Forgive me, Jesus. I had to do it, Jesus." Eulene's scar didn't help matters none. Usually she wore a bright scarf round her neck, and you could see only the small part that came up over the back left cheekbone across the bottom of her ear. A boyfriend, Junior, did it to her. She had told me before he got put into the pen for making white lightning. But he's the best man I ever seen, and he loves my little Robert just like he's his real daddy. Billy, someday I'm going to bring my little Robert over here and let you meet him. He's only 2 years younger than you, and you two can play. But she never brought Robert. Looking back on it, I expect Mother told her not to, but I sure wouldn't have said nothing to let my parents know if Euline had sneaked him over while Mother played bridge somewhere or while Daddy fished. I suppose Euline could not afford to take the risk, but my parents had annoyed me enough that I would have sided with Euline, especially since my parents would not go to the hospital to get me either a baby brother or a baby sister the way Miss Mac had for Dick and Mrs. Steele, a Yankee, had for Tommy. Euline had sneaked me to her house once, though, and I never told anybody about it, even though it scared me almost into forgetting going there. Even today I would keep quiet about that visit, with her wailing in the rock garden. As I said earlier, Euline was a lean, smart woman, not passive like Bertha, and not powerful, polite like Mother could be, especially with strangers. Mother wouldn't even let me call her Mama, the way Tommy and Dick did their mothers, 'cause Mother said Mama doesn't show enough respect. When Daddy left earshot, Mother would even add that he proved her point by the way Daddy and his sister called my grandmother Mama instead of Mother, and then wouldn't even hire a maid, but expected her to do all the work. Euline said she let her son Robert call her anything he pleased, and that sometime he even called her Euline. That's about the only evidence I saw that made me think Dick and Tommy right when they said colored people differed from us. Then another Yankee family moved into the big house on the lower corner of the block, and their daughters called both parents by their first name. But they put an end to Dick and Tommy's wisdom. I didn't get to meet Euline's boy Robert even when she sneaked me in the colored taxi over to her house. She said he'd gone to Huntsville with his grandmama. That day so bothered me that now, 3 years later, I can't remember much, even when I try real hard, except for the early part leading up to my going there. It wasn't that any of it had anything to do with me. That's precisely the point. I wasn't meant to be there. I got to see only because Euline did not have anything else to do with me but to bring me along. I suspected something when I awoke, but I didn't smell breakfast. My parents and the McWhorters had left by dawn for the Alabama-Auburn game at Legion Field in Birmingham. As Bertha had done before her, and as Euline herself had done many times too, I expected Euline to arrive by 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Usually she wouldn't wake me until she had my breakfast almost done. Then she would come to the door, clanging on a Welch's glass with a spoon, saying in one sustained high note, "First call to breakfast, dining car in the rear. First call to breakfast, dining car in the rear," the way the conductors did on the train the one time Mother had taken me to stay in the Henry Grady Hotel and see the cyclorama at Grant Park in Atlanta. Euline did not arrive until almost 10 o'clock. "Come with me, child. You must help me out, okay?" "Yes, but I'm hungry." "Where are we going?" I'm hungry. Jones Cafe didn't open for breakfast. Besides, even if they had started lunch, they would make me eat by myself and push Eulene's food to her through a little window. I didn't want to go someplace I did not know about for how long I did not know. Billy, don't I feed you good always, she said. Yes, I whimpered and started to gather a couple of toys to take with me. You can't use those today. Like I say, you got to help me out. I ain't got no choice. You got to be real good. I'll feed you, but can't nobody spend no time with you. You man enough to do that? She asked as she helped me into my jacket. Where we going? How long we going to stay? I asked. To my house. To stay all day. Now hurry up. You need to do number 1 or number 2 before we go, 'cause you won't like my outhouse. What kind of house is that? Go to the bathroom and meet me at the door, she said. The red scarf around her neck clashed with the red scarf she wore over her head. Is it raining, I wondered? I liked Eulene's thick red lips, and she didn't have to wear lipstick to make them that way like Mother did. Why be riding in a colored cab, I asked. Hurry on to the bathroom like I say, Billy. Please help me. I pay you back. I'll always be good to you, but please help me today. Please hurry, and when we get there, please be good and sit in the corner all day. Don't talk to nobody, and don't ever tell your parents that I took you there, okay? I promise to get you back there and fix hamburgers just the way you like them, even to let you have the peanut butter on them, okay? I'd already decided to help her. Bertha and Mother treated me more like a child. Eulene was strong and pretty. I would be brave. When I finished in the bathroom, I met her at the front door. Will they let me ride in a colored cab, I asked. Of course they will, Eulene said, but looked over her shoulder towards the Steeles, then towards the McWhirters. Why are we riding in a colored cab, I asked about the time she opened the door for us. She motioned for me to scoot across the back seat, and after she closed the door, she answered, Billy, we riding in a colored cab 'cause I be colored. You white. You can ride anywhere. Now be good for me. I need you, okay? Yeah, I allowed. The block down behind the project, she told the driver, and handed him 25 cents. Like I already told you, I can remember only a few particulars of what happened. Junior was there, wounded, it seemed. I remember a bandage, but can't remember on which part. I think Junior lay on a bed, but maybe on a couch. I remember that a sheet covered the lower part of his body, that he lay naked from the waist up. Junior looked much stronger and younger than my father. The shade stayed drawn from the time I got there until the time Eulene took me back home about 5 o'clock. No one bothered about me. About 8 or 10 people came and went during the day. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and can't figure out most of it even when I daydream about it. Most of the time it was like I was at the movies, but this movie didn't have any cowboys or any kids. Once in a while, Eulene would come over and whisper, You're a good child, Billy. God will bless you for this. Sometimes she brought me something to eat. She then returned to her part in the movie. I stayed on that floor in the dark corner. That's about it, mostly. I do remember much whispering, but people talked normally at other times. I vaguely remember that even in the chilly room with a small kerosene heater, several times, maybe 9 or 10, the sheet slid off, exposing Junior. No one seemed concerned. Whatever else happened seemed much more important. One man acted like a doctor, but he couldn't have been because our town still don't have no colored doctors. Eulene touched Junior some, but I can't remember how. She put a bandage on. I think a lot about it during the daytime, and sometimes I even dream about it at night. The dream picks pieces from the other times that don't have anything to do with that day. At one point I fish with Fincher. We sit in a boat under a shade tree with our shirts off and don't catch a single brim. But Daddy didn't ask Fincher to start taking me fishing until even after the DDT. The dream also brings back about 10 minutes from the day I went to buy nails and gather scrap wood for my treehouse. Yulene hadn't even started to work for us yet. The sun shines bright. Nobody's mad at me. I'm mad at nobody. I don't even begin the treehouse. The dream seems not about the treehouse. The treehouse is just extra. The dream begins after I've walked most of the way to town. I've come to the first street without trees. It's summer. That's all of that. I won't give all the pieces, because they don't make any sense to me neither. In one longer part, I go to visit my grandmother in the country. My aunt takes me there in her old car. It has the tire in a round metal container on the outside of a slanted trunk. I play dominoes and rummy with my cousin, and then my aunt takes me to the bus station and gives a piece of paper to the driver, since I have to change buses in Sylacauga. The second bus is an hour late. I'm thirsty. The fountain marked white doesn't work. But when I walk to the colored side, the ticket seller tells me to sit back down. Then he brings me a Coca-Cola. But I don't want it, since it's room temperature. The very next thing in the dream, the bus driver lets me out at Yulene's. I don't come by taxi the way it really happened. This time it's night. Something important's happened, but I cannot figure out what it is. Had Junior escaped somewhere? Had he got shot? Had he and Yulene had a fight? I did not know. They did not tell me. They said to pay them no never mind, to sit quietly in a corner and never to tell my parents. I never did tell them. Yulene quit working for us soon after, and Bertha came back. Still, I never told. Certainly, I would never have dared to tell them after the ambulance arrived, with Mother waddling down the street behind it. I didn't go to the backyard again that day, and didn't want to, but I doubt that Mother would have allowed me even if I tried. Miss Mack came into the house with me. I showed her the note, which said only what we already knew. I've taken poison. Life is too much for me now, Miss McWorthington. Don't blame Junior. I just can't take it no more. Tell my boy Robert I will love him always. The next afternoon, Fincher come up the back steps with our groceries. He and Yulene talked at the kitchen table. You don't know how much you like life until you think you will die, she said. I'll bet, he said. Did that pump hurt bad? I was too scared to notice. This fried chicken's going to be the best I ever tasted. I hope you done thrown away that DDT, Fincher said. I ain't studying that stuff ever again, she said. Good, he said. I sat on the toilet in the middle bathroom, the one nearest the kitchen, where she had given me the note, just the afternoon before, listening.